Hello everybody, Jordan here. The PH is silent. Let's get down, like way down, to the Underdark, the subterranean world that exists below Faerun. And I mean all over Faerun. It's easy to stick with the Sword Coast and the Drizzt novels, but there is Underdark everywhere. The Underdark is a vast network of caverns and tunnels. It must be like Swiss cheese underneath Tyrell. The Underdark is divided up into three sections: the Upper Dark, the Middle Dark, and the Lower Dark. The Upper Dark is just a few miles below the surface, where the Middle Dark is 8 to 10 miles below the surface, and the Lower Dark is even further beneath that. The Upper Dark is mainly inhabited by drow, beholders, dwarves, and mind flayers. Food and water is somewhat abundant here, at least compared to other areas of the Underdark, which makes it more livable for these races. The inhabitants of the Middle Dark see the other races as slaves. The drow also live here, as well as mind flayers, but also Kuatoas and the Duergar. The majority of major cities in the Underdark reside here, in the Middle Dark. Beyond that is the Lower Dark, and it is home to the incredibly strange. Alien societies of aboliths, as well as the Darrow, live here. Food and water is rare in the Lower Dark, so the races prey on one another for survival. The Underdark has a beginning, a creation story. This is 4th edition lore, so for those of you who hate it, don't read into it too much. The Underdark was created like the rest of Tyrell by the Primordials. Before the Dawn War occurred, the god Torog became imprisoned in the primeval Underdark. He went searching for a primordial named Gargash, who was torturing gods beneath the surface of Tyrell. He found Gargash, and the two fought. Torog won, but at great cost. With Gargash's last breath, he cursed Torog to be trapped in the Underdark. His wounds would not heal, and he would never be able to leave. Torog sought a way out of the Underdark, but for some reason could not direct himself up to tunnel out. He was trapped. He crawled sideways and down, carving out caverns and tunnels, expanding and connecting the Underdark. He was powerful enough to crash into the Feywild and the Shadowfell, creating the Feydark and the Shadowdark. The passages he's created are often referred to as the King's Highway. I believe this is just another name for the tunnels of the Underdark, but it also could refer to the openings he created into the Feywild and Shadowfell. Torog never escaped, never ascended to live in the Astral Sea with the other gods. He remained underneath Tyrell, deep in the darkest part of the Underdark, waiting and ruling. Torog is the god of imprisonment and torture, and he is also known as the Lord of the Underdark. Torog's blood coated the Underdark during his tunneling and set magic within the rocks. Torog's magic and his whole being became tied to the Underdark. Were he to leave, his powers would greatly diminish, so he stays there, beneath Tyrell, for the rest of eternity. But that's 4th edition lore, and although I find it important in the grand scheme of the Forgotten Realms, I know most of you dislike it, so take it with a grain of salt. The Underdark is not as lightless as it may seem. There are bioluminescent fungi that exist throughout, as well as glowstone, which is a glowing rock that could be as small as a baseball or large as a cavern wall. It provides dim light within 30 feet, and on the flip side, there is another rock called Dark Rock, which absorbs light, making your torches less effective in the Underdark. There are numerous races and creatures that live in the Underdark. The Drow obviously have made their home there. Lolth directed them to the Underdark. Nobody thought that the elves would survive, let alone thrive in this harsh world, but they did, becoming at home with the caverns and tunnels. Dwarves live in the Underdark, but mostly their dark cousins the Duergar do. Beholders, Illithids, Kuatoa, Snurfeblin all make their home in these underground caverns. Many of those races mentioned have created large cities there. The Duergar carving and mining out huge caverns for their populations, the Drow using the magic of Lolth to change their surroundings, the Illithids gathering slaves to do their bidding and create large cities for the Elder Brain. Although carving into stalagmites and stalactites is common, there is also a form of fungus that is used for construction. It resembles lumber from the world above. The Underdark's landscape varies as much as the surface world. There are small subterranean fissures almost impossible for an adventurer to crawl through, only to open up into huge expansive caverns with underground lakes. There are underground magma rivers, as well as lush, almost tropical areas full of moss, fungus, and other plant life. Since there isn't any sunlight, plants have to gather nutrition from other sources. One of those sources is the Fairzris, which is a magical energy that permeates the Underdark. Plants and fungi would feed off of this magic and grow to ridiculous sizes. The Fairzris, which is a drow word, causes magical problems with scrying and teleportation. Because of this, many drow cities were built in areas with an abundance of Fairzris to keep their cities secure from magical intrusion. They even started building artifacts that harness the magical energy for some beneficial effects. Fairzris can affect spellcasting much like wild magic. Purple worms, umber hulks, zorns, and other creatures burrow through solid rock in the Underdark. This makes maps go out of date rather quickly with the ever-changing Underdark. I'm personally surprised there aren't more giant sinkholes created on the surface. You would think with the Swiss cheese of the Underdark below that cave-ins would occur constantly, resulting in sinkholes across Faerun. Water is scarce in the Underdark, and when a source of fresh water is discovered, it is hoarded and protected. There is no rain in the Underdark, but water does trickle down from the surface, slowly and rarely. Locations of note in the Underdark? Well, it's difficult to decide what is important enough to mention, but Menzoberranzan is a famous city of the Drow. Blinding Stone is another important site, a Snurfeblan city-state founded in -690 DR. The city was destroyed in 1371 DR, but resettled in 1440 DR. Gracklstugh, also known as the City of Blades, is a Duergar nation and resides in the Middledark, bordering an Underdark sea called Dark Lake. And because I find it interesting, there is a Drow city called Shasamath that is ruled by male Drow wizards, with female clerics of Lolth taking lesser roles. They craft numerous magical items here, and it is considered a strong trading partner by other cities. And that's it for today. The Underdark has lots more to go into, so I think I'll make this a two-part episode. Next week, I'll talk about the races of the Underdark in more detail and perhaps their major cities. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next week with another episode of Forgotten Realms Explained.